Have you ever reached a point where you realize something you never wanted to admit out loud? Not the kind of realization that comes with sirens or hospital lights. The quiet kind. The kind that arrives on an ordinary afternoon, when you're standing in your kitchen, holding something simple, like a letter or your phone, and you suddenly understand. You can't rely on anyone the way you once did. Not even family. And the hard part is, nobody prepared you for how that would feel. Because most of us grow up believing something deep in our bones. That no matter what happens, family will be the net that catches us. But later in life, that net changes. Kids get busy. They're not evil. They're not ungrateful. They're just pulled in 100 directions. Siblings develop their own health problems. Friends move away, fall ill, or pass on. And sometimes, the people you thought would always show up simply stop showing up. And then you're left with a question that doesn't sound dramatic, but feels heavy enough to bend your spine. Who's really there for me now? If you've ever felt that question hit your chest, stay with me. Because this video is not here to make you bitter. It's here to make you ready. In fact, I want to show you something most people don't understand until it's too late. You can reach 70 and beyond, and still feel strong, grounded, and steady. Not because everyone stayed, but because you learned how to build support that doesn't disappear. Support that doesn't get tired. Support that doesn't forget to call back. Support that doesn't make you feel like a burden. Today we're going to talk about 5 sources of support that become more dependable than family as you age. Not because family is bad, but because family is human. And human beings are unpredictable. These 5 supports are different. They're quiet. They're practical. They're powerful. And once you build them, you stop fearing the silence. You stop feeling fragile. You stop waiting for someone else to stabilize your life. And you start living like someone who cannot be shaken. I'm also going to introduce you to Margaret, 74 years old, recently retired, living alone after the kind of life most of us would call normal. She loved her children. She was close to her sister. She had a circle of friends. But one year, something changed. Not in a dramatic explosion, just in the slow, quiet way life sometimes pulls people away. And Margaret discovered something that surprised her. She wasn't abandoned, but she was no longer buffered. No longer protected by the assumption that someone would always be available. She didn't realize how much she depended on that assumption until it was gone. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, this feels uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone. And you're not weak. You're awake. Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from. Just your city or state in the comments. Not for statistics, for connection. And if this topic matters to you, tap like and subscribe, because the longer we wait to build these supports, the harder it becomes. If you're still here with me right now, comment 1 so I know you're watching. Now let's begin. Support 1. Your physical mobility, the support that feels like freedom. Margaret never thought of mobility as emotional support. She thought of it as health. But the day she understood the truth, she was reaching for a pot on a high shelf. She stepped onto a small stool like she'd done 1,000 times. And for a split second, her balance wobbled. Nothing happened. She didn't fall. But fear flashed through her body so fast it felt like electricity. She climbed down and stood there, breath held, heart pounding, staring at the kitchen floor, like it had suddenly become dangerous. And this thought hit her, sharp and cold. If I fall, who will pick me up? That's the moment mobility stops being about walking. Mobility becomes about independence. It becomes about dignity. It becomes the difference between living on your own terms and living in quiet fear. Because when you're in your 70s, being able to move freely isn't just convenient. It's power. It means you can get out of bed without help. It means you can cook your own meal. It means you can carry groceries without needing someone to rescue you. It means you can open the door and step outside when you wanna, without planning your life around someone else's schedule. And that does something to your mind. It gives you confidence. It reduces the fear of becoming a burden. It makes you feel like you still own your life. Margaret realized that if she protected her mobility, she was protecting something deeper than her body. She was protecting her identity. So she started small, not with a gym membership, not with an impossible workout plan. She started with 15 minutes, a short walk every day. At first, she felt ridiculous, slow, stiff, a little embarrassed. But then something happened that surprised her. Her body responded. Not instantly, not magically, but quietly, like a plant turning toward the sun. Her knees felt more cooperative. Her ankles felt more stable. And the biggest change wasn't in her muscles, that it was in her mind. She started thinking differently. Instead of thinking, "I'm getting old," she began thinking, "I'm staying capable." That shift is everything. Because when your body becomes dependent, your mind often shrinks with it. You start avoiding outings. You stop planning trips. You decline invitations, not because you don't want to go, but because you fear what you can't manage. That's not aging. That's shrinking. And Margaret didn't want to shrink. She didn't want to be the person who watched life through a window. So she turned her home into a place that supported movement. She cleared pathways. She made the floor safer. She stopped ignoring the small dizziness moments, and she built strength the way people build savings. Small deposits, repeated daily. Stretching while the kettle boiled. Standing on one foot near the counter for balance. Gentle resistance moves to keep her legs trustworthy. And here's the part most people miss. When you invest in mobility, you don't just gain function. You gain emotional steadiness. You stop feeling like life can knock you down at any moment. If you're in your 60s or 70s and you've been feeling stiff or unsteady, hear this. You don't have to become young. You just have to become reliable. Reliable to yourself. Because family might not always be there to help you up. But if your legs are strong, your core is steady, and your balance is practiced, you delay dependence. You keep your independence longer than most people expect. And that independence is one of the most dependable supports you can own. If this part hits you, comment M for mobility. Support 2. Financial simplicity. The support that makes you breathe. Again, Margaret didn't have a luxury retirement. She wasn't rich. But she had something that many people don't have. She had enough if she managed it wisely. And for years, she didn't. Not because she was reckless, because she avoided thinking about it. There were multiple accounts. Small subscriptions she forgot existed. Bills arriving with confusing language. And the mental stress wasn't just annoying. It was exhausting. Because complicated finances become emotional baggage. It's not just numbers. It's uncertainty. And uncertainty is one of the biggest sources of anxiety in later life. Margaret noticed that on quiet nights, her mind would wander to the same fearful questions. What if I outlive my savings? What if I need care? What if a big expense hits and I have no cushion? What if I become dependent on my kids financially? And they resent it. Those questions haunted her more than pain did. So she made a decision. Not to make more money. To make her money simpler. She downsized. Not because she wanted less. Because she wanted freedom. She reduced her bills. She consolidated accounts. She canceled what she didn't use. She wrote down what came in and what went out until she could see her life clearly. And it didn't just reduce stress. It changed how she felt about herself. Because when your finances are simple, you regain control. You stop feeling ashamed when you don't understand something. You stop needing someone else to translate your life. You become the captain again. Margaret said something once that stayed with me. I used to be afraid to check the mail. Now I open it like a grown woman. That sentence is not about envelopes. It's about dignity. And here's a powerful truth. Financial simplicity is support that never leaves you. It doesn't forget your birthday. It doesn't get busy. It doesn't tell you, "I'll call you later," and never call. It sits there quietly and says, "You can handle this." Now, I'm not telling you to obsess. I'm telling you to clarify. Because peace isn't in the numbers. It's in the knowing. If you feel overwhelmed financially, start small. One list. One account. One subscription. One bill. Make it so clear you could explain it to a friend over coffee. Because when you can see your life clearly, you sleep better. And sleep is support too. If you're still here, comment 2, so I know you've made it to this point. Support 3. A consistent health routine. The support that prevents crisis. Margaret used to treat health like something you deal with when it becomes a problem. Many people do. They wait until the roof is leaking, and then they try to patch it during the storm. But one winter, Margaret had a wake-up call. She stood up too quickly, felt dizzy, and grabbed the counter. Again, she didn't fall, but she felt how close she was. And it scared her in a quiet, humiliating way. Because she realized how quickly fine can become not fine. So she changed her approach. Not with extreme diets. Not with expensive supplements. With routine. Because routine is invisible support. It doesn't look impressive, but it keeps you out of crisis. Margaret built simple anchors. Water first thing in the morning. A consistent breakfast instead of skipping meals. A short walk even if it was cold. Stretching before bed. Medications taken on time, without guessing. Doctor checkups not delayed until the problem becomes a disaster. And what she discovered was unexpected. Routine reduced her anxiety. Because routine removes decision fatigue. When you're older, energy is precious. If you have to decide every day, should I do this today? You'll eventually stop. But when something becomes automatic, it becomes reliable. Margaret said, "My routine is the friend who shows up every day." That's support. And psychologically, routine tells your nervous system, we're safe, we're stable, we're not lost. It keeps the day from dissolving into emptiness. It gives structure even when you feel lonely. And the more structure you have, the less you rely on other people to keep you afloat. Emotionally, if you've ever felt the day slipping away and thought, what's the point? Routine is your answer. Not because routine is exciting, because routine is grounding. If you've let your health habits slide, don't shame yourself. Start with one anchor, one consistent habit, one daily action that proves to your body and brain, I still take care of me. That's support no one can take away. Support. 4. Emotional resilience, the support that makes loneliness lose power. This is where Margaret's biggest transformation happened. Because she could simplify money, she could build routine, she could strengthen her legs. But emotions? Emotions are different. Margaret had always been the strong one, the dependable one, the one who didn't fall apart. But after retirement, when the house got quieter, she started feeling something she didn't know how to name. It wasn't depression exactly. It was the weight of being unneeded, the strange emptiness of no longer being required. And when her children didn't call as often as she expected, it didn't just hurt. It activated something deeper, a fear that she was becoming invisible. That's one of the most painful fears in aging. Not being alone, being irrelevant. So Margaret tried to fix it the way many people do. She waited for someone else to notice. She hoped someone would call and feel what she felt. And sometimes they did. But most of the time, they didn't. Not because they didn't love her, because people are busy living their own lives. So Margaret made a choice. A powerful one. She stopped outsourcing emotional stability. She began building it. She created small rituals. A candle in the evening, not because it was religious, but because it made the room feel alive. A journal where she wrote the truth instead of swallowing it. Music in the morning instead of silence. A short walk in nature to remind her body that the world was still moving with her, not away from her. And slowly, she learned something many people never learn. Emotional resilience doesn't mean never feeling pain. It means feeling pain without drowning. It means letting sadness move through you without becoming your identity. It means telling yourself, this hurts, and I can handle it. When you do that repeatedly, you become less afraid. Less afraid of grief. Less afraid of quiet. Less afraid of future loss. That is power. And it changes the way you interact with family too. Because when you're emotionally resilient, you stop clinging. You stop guilt-tripping. You stop silently resenting people for not reading your mind. You become warmer, lighter, safer to be around. And paradoxically, that often brings people closer. Because people are drawn to steady energy. If you've been carrying emotional weight, hear this. You don't need to toughen up. You need to become your own safe place. Because when you are your own safe place, loneliness changes shape. It stops being a threat. And sometimes, it becomes peace that if you relate, comment for. Support 5. A personal code of values, the support that anchors your identity. This final one is the quietest, but it might be the most powerful. Margaret realized that in her younger years, she lived by roles. Worker, mother, wife, caregiver, problem solver. And when those roles faded, she felt strangely unmoored. Like she wasn't sure who she was without being needed. That's when she developed what she called her personal code. Not rules to impress anyone, values to stabilize herself. She chose a few guiding principles. She would be kind without becoming a doormat. She would protect her peace without apologizing. She would speak truth without cruelty. She would stay curious instead of becoming bitter. She would forgive faster, because she didn't want to drag old pain into her remaining years. And when life disappointed her, because it always will, she used her code like a compass. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? She asked, how do I want to respond? That question changes everything, because it returns control to you. A personal code reduces regret. It simplifies decisions. It creates internal stability. And when you have internal stability, you don't collapse when external support wobbles. Margaret once said, "I don't need everyone's approval anymore. I need my own respect." That is the voice of someone who is no longer fragile. That is the voice of someone who built support that cannot leave. So what's the truth after 70? The truth is that people may come and go. Even family can shift in ways you didn't expect. And yes, that can hurt, but it does not have to break you. Because the most dependable supports in later life are not always people. They are systems. They are habits. They are foundations you build that hold you steady even on the days nobody calls. Mobility that keeps you free. Financial simplicity that gives you calm. Routine that keeps you out of crisis. Emotional resilience that makes silence survivable. Values that keep your identity intact. Margaret didn't become cold. She became anchored. And that anchoring didn't make her lonely. It made her peaceful. Now here's a gentle challenge for you. After this video ends, ask yourself, which of these supports do I already have? And which one do I want to strengthen starting this week? Don't try to overhaul your life in one day. Big change begins with one quiet decision. And if you're still watching, I'd love to hear from you. How old are you? And which support do you want to build first? Drop it in the comments. If this video helped you, tap like so it reaches someone who needs it. Subscribe if you want more honest conversations about aging with strength and dignity. Because you don't need more people. You need a stronger foundation. And once you have it, you never truly feel alone.